Hi, welcome to the Express Online. Conflict of interest seems to be an albatross that's been hanging around the BCCI's neck for a long time. The Lodha committee report seems to address these issues. They have mentioned some instances in their report, which was released recently, that seem to mirror real life situations in the BCCI. I have my colleague Bharat Sundaresan here with me, who is going to be telling me about these instances. Bharat?
Yeah, Johnny, see, basically, there are a few which are very obvious. I think we've been hearing about them, reading about them, dealing with them for quite some time. I mean, you just look at, they talk about a BCCI president having a son-in-law who's a team official in a franchise. We know who they're talking about. It's the N. Srinivasan Gurunath Mayappan saga, which for a long time N. Srinivasan denied, but then after all those investigations, it was found that he was a team official, and we know what's happened. Chennai Super Kings has been suspended, Gurunath Mayappan has been banned. Then there's also the case of Mahendra Singh Dhoni being a co-owner of, allegedly being a co-owner of Riti Sports Management, who were managing players who were playing under him when he was Indian captain. And there is an illustration of that as well, where he says something along the same lines. There's also the case of Saurav Ganguly, who was an IPL governing council member, and the new Pune franchisee that's come into being, the IPL, which is owned by Sanjeev Goenka. And Ganguly and he are co-owners of the ISL team Atletico de Calcutta. So, but when Shashank Manohar was asked about it, he did deny there being any conflict of interest a month back. But if you go by the Lodha report, there is a conflict of interest. So, well, there's something the BCCI will have to look at.
The BCCI has already done one round of house cleaning, so to speak. What could they be doing right now?
Well, to start off, if you go through the Lodha report, they have acknowledged the fact that Shashank Manohar has shown an interest to get rid of this conflict of interest malaise that has like really haunted the BCCI. But he clearly states that it's not significant enough and that it's cosmetic. He actually uses that term,
The word, yeah.
and that they need to do it more seriously, and that's pretty much what he's done. He's given them like a roadmap of how they can go about it. He's defined clauses and defined different forms of conflict of interest that may arise and how the BCCI should deal with it.
And in fact, the fact that you said that there's some clear-cut cases where they talk about these conflict of interest, these scenarios, but there's also some cases which aren't that clear-cut.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few which you can't really find a direct example of. But for example, there's one where he cites the BCCI president having hired a firm that he had hired as professional services for, who are now the BCCI consultants. Well, the issue with that is, well, incidentally, Shashank Manohar did hire a very senior and very established soliciting firm to consult the BCCI after he came in. He got rid of the long-standing legal panel that existed in-house. So, but is Mr. Lodha talking about that? We can't be so sure of. But that probably is not does not mirror a real-life scenario.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's also the case of Brijesh Patel, who is the secretary of the Karnataka State Cricket Association, who also owns a company that makes those ad hoardings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the illustration says that if a secretary of the state association does own a company like that and he hires them once he comes into power, that is conflict of interest. But Brijesh Patel clearly has denied that being the case. So these are a couple of examples of things that may not be as obvious as your Dhoni or Srinivasan,
Yeah.
but there are slight hints there, maybe that he's not taking names, but he's just stopped short of taking names.
He's implying things.
I wouldn't go as far as saying that he's implying things, but he's at least he's not leaving too much to the imagination.
Yeah. The BCCI has made it clear in the past that it wants to become a more transparent body. How do you think it's going to act on the findings on the recommendations?
Correct. Firstly, I mean, that will all depend on whether they accept the recommendations or the Lodha report in whole. But specifically talking about the conflict of interest thing, the fact that Mr. Lodha and his colleagues are not happy with what the BCCI has done so far, the fact that most of the issues that they've brought up and they put it in forms, they've called it tractable, intractable, they've defined it and they've distinguished various forms of conflict of interest, and most of which BCCI has not even like acknowledged, forget addressing, is not a very positive sign when you think about whether they will deal with it with a strong hand. But
at least it's out there.
It's out there, and at least it will depend a lot on how much of the Lodha report the BCCI takes seriously, and how much they think they don't have to bother about.
Thanks, Bharat, for those inputs, and thank you guys for watching.